I want to begin by talking about tax cuts. During Bernie Sanders' town hall on Fox News, the topic of tax cuts came up, specifically tax cuts for the wealthy. We all know where Bernie Sanders stands on that issue, but I'm curious to see how the questions were framed and how Bernie Sanders answered, knowing that he is in the lion's den. He is there with the right wing. What do they think? How do they react? Well, let's take a look at the first video.
So I guess on Fox News, you said that I benefited from Trump's tax bill. Did you tell people that I voted against Trump's tax bill?
Sure, but you did benefit from it.
But I voted against it. And I happen to believe that a tax bill written and pushed by Trump, who told the American people that that tax bill, some of you may recall, would not benefit the wealthy. You remember that? Oh, it's not going to benefit the wealthy. 83% of the benefits went to the top 1%. So I think that's a bad idea. And in my view, people, whether it's me, you probably make a lot more money than I do. But whether it's me or you or anybody else, I think wealthy people and large corporations that are making billions in profits should start paying their fair share of taxes.
But Senator,
I like that he's in their faces, though. I like that he stood up and he was like, let me tell you. And when he said, you probably make more money than I do, he smirked.
Yeah, that was good. Well, and because the host knows that he makes millions of dollars every year, yeah.
She kept her poker face on, but he cracked a little bit. I think he kind of likes Bernie a little bit.
I mean,
look like it.
I don't, because of the fact that they make all that money and they're worried about, having to pay more in taxes. But I totally agree with you in that I love the way that he stood up, and it came off as authentic as opposed to the typical, let me roll up my sleeves, this is my opportunity to stand up now and do like the walk. He wanted to get in his face and be like, okay, I might have a little money now because of the book, but did I change my policies? No, I didn't. Yeah. And I'm gonna keep pushing this policy of having a more equitable system. So people in the middle class and working class aren't paying a higher percentage of their income in taxes, while the wealthy and some of these massive corporations like Netflix pay nothing in federal taxes. In some cases, they get a tax rebate.
So you know what I want to say is that I really hope that people are listening. The people are listening, regardless of where you are in the political game, wherever you stand, that you're listening to the issues and what we're talking about as they, particularly have to do with your livelihood, and I really hope that some people are able to listen objectively and say, because there are a lot of people who are not in the upper, in that 1% who fight for everything that is pro-Trump, you know what I mean? And they're not even thinking about how that trickles down to affect them.
Yeah. So things got even more personal because Bernie's taxes came up. By the way, Bernie Sanders did release 10 years worth of taxes today. That story broke while we were on air, so I haven't had an opportunity to sit down and read details about it. But with that said, Bret Baier and Martha McCallum at Fox did ask about his taxes, and here's how the conversation went. Take a look.
But your marginal tax rate was 26% because of President Trump's tax cuts. So why not say, I'm leading this revolution, I'm not gonna take those.
Come on, we're doing, I pay the taxes that I owe. And by the way, why don't you got Donald Trump up here and ask him how much he pays in taxes?
Or ask him anything about his taxes whatsoever, because we don't know. There's a meme that you might have seen going around, I think it was by Matt Bors, and it's like a peasant who's saying, I think we should improve society. And then it's another like troll popping his head out of a well saying, and yet you participate in society. I'm very intelligent. Those attacks, it's so, like Bret Baier is supposed to be one of the down the line, not opinion people. He's supposed to be very intelligent. And he says, oh, your taxes were lowered by that. Why don't you voluntarily pay higher taxes? He's an intelligent person who makes millions of dollars to analyze politics every year. And that is the level of sophistication of his argument. And it's not just Bret Baier, by the way, and it's not just Fox News. There's been so many articles since it came out that Bernie Sanders might be barely a millionaire, that Bernie's a millionaire. and yet he still wants to raise taxes, as if like they've identified some sort of inconsistency, when what they've identified is 100% consistency. When he wasn't technically a millionaire, he wanted to raise taxes on the wealthy. Now it would affect him more, and yet he still wants to do it.
Right.
That is consistency, and they think they've found a weakness.
Well, the reason why they try to sell that argument as inconsistency is because they want to frame the left as individuals who just hate wealthy people. Like, we just hate wealthy people because it's the thing to do. But the reality is, I have absolutely no negative feelings toward wealthy people who want to pay their fair share, right? And so if you succeeded in your career and you wrote a book and it was successful and people bought it, and now you made $1 million off that book, I'm not hating on you. Where I do hate on you is if you pay a smaller percentage of your income in taxes compared to what the middle class and the working class pays. And so far, Bernie Sanders, regardless of how much money he's made, continues to push for policy that would increase taxes on the wealthy.
Yeah.
And that's all that matters.
Yeah, it's just funny to me how people penalize other people for their success. Like when he was like, well, you're in this bracket now or whatever. He worked for that. It's not like he inherited that. A lot of times you're listening to people who are privileged, they've inherited their wealth, they didn't work a day for those dollars, and yet and still they are pouncing on those of us who do it every day. So I'm glad that Bernie, I'm gonna start doing that. That's how I'm gonna start answering questions to people who come to me with stupid stuff. That's gonna be me.
So
yeah, really fast. I agree. He earned it, and it should be taxed at a much higher rate than it's taxed right now. Bernie, one of the people I like the most in the world, should have twice as high of a top marginal tax rate. He wouldn't be affected by it much because it affects income over $1 million or more than $1 million, and he barely made more than $1 million. People seem to forget what a marginal tax rate is, but it is, again, not inconsistent. And that thing from Bret Baier, I think the reason it gets under my skin so much is more and more it's becoming obvious that the sort of cheap partisan tricks that right-wingers use on social media are now all of America.
Yeah.
That they troll on social media to get followings and everything, and now they just appear at congressional testimony. Candace Owens is the expert they call on for a hate crimes meeting because Congress is no better than social media. And Bret Baier, the straight news guy at Fox, that's the exact line that he used, something that Charlie Kirk would say. Oh, you say you're a socialist and yet you don't give away all your money. I've caught you in something there, because media is no better than Twitter anymore either. They've managed to take the worst thing we've ever made as a people, Twitter, and drag everything else. It's the anchor that's pulling all of American society down to the bottom.
Let me just say this, it's a trigger for me. When I hear somebody say, well, I'm more socially liberal but fiscally conservative, as a person that comes from a marginalized group, usually what you hear when you hear fiscally conservative is, I wanna maintain the status quo that keeps you down and keeps you hungry and behind in the race and keeps us on top and keeps us eating. That will one day, the chickens will come home to roost.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And by the way, what does fiscally conservative mean? That means I want to pay less in taxes. And what does less in taxes mean? Underfunding education, both public schools and public universities, which is one of the reasons why tuition is so expensive, or has become so expensive at some of these public colleges, because they rely on taxpayer money for their funding. And so once these schools get defunded, which is what happened after the recession in 2008, by the way, none of these schools really saw an increase in their funding to the levels that they were at before, after the recession, even though our economy has obviously improved in some ways. So yeah, that's what it means. The fiscally conservative stuff, it means, hey, I want to talk the talk when it comes to social issues, but I don't want to walk the walk, because walking the walk requires funding.
The TYT Plus app is now available on iOS and Android. Download to get more TYT content at tyt.com/app.